Hey YouTube, ValleyGirl5678 here, and it's time for another review. Today I will be reviewing the new MILLI album, Ho You Still Here. MILLI is a 22-year-old rapper from Mobile, Alabama. As she says on her track 19 from her debut mixtape, Ho Why Is You Here, she got rich at the age of 19. This was all thanks to her iconic breakout singles Beef Flow Mix and In the Party that went viral on TikTok in 2019 into 2020. This made it so that ever since the end of 2019 and into 2020, if you say MILLI shit to pretty much any member of Gen Z, they will say it back to you, or they know what that means. She then went on to prove that this viral moment was deserved and that she was not a one-hit wonder and that she was here to stay with her debut mixtape that I mentioned, Ho Why Is You Here, in 2020. I believe it was. I remember it actually came out the same day as Folklore. So that was July 24th. So obviously, Ho Why Is You Here was her debut mixtape, not technically an album. However, it does feel like her debut album in that realm, in that sense. So I am considering this album, Ho You Still Here, her sophomore album, because, and I will get into it, but it's giving sophomore album. Obviously, her debut mixtape was called Ho Why Is You Here. This album is called Ho You Still Here. Obviously, it's a bit of a continuation of that theme, but that's kind of the only thing that remains similar to the debut mixtape. The aesthetics are different, the beats are different, the production is different, and the quality is different. But ultimately, MILLI has it. She has the star quality, the raw talent, and that is very present on this album, especially the first 5 tracks. Not to mention that the intro and outro of this album are speaking moments from Tiffany Pollard, New York herself. Like, at this point, MILLI has declared herself like Gen Z's it rapper, it rapper girl. She's, as Tiffany says on the intro, I think, like, she's queen of the rap shit, and she was, which is why I did expect a little more. Overall, she's playing with different sonic aesthetics and aspects of the hip-hop genre, whether it's current aesthetics or ones from the 20th century. One of my favorite tracks on the album, Come Outside, which is track 2, gives me 21 Savage vibes, to be honest, especially the verses. Hottie is a borderline R&B vibe, and it's very chill and smooth collab with Babyface. Conceited, the leading single for this album, sounds the most like the sound that made her famous in 2019. Tilted Halo, the second to last track, we get our first like R&B ballad from MILLI, and it's really nice to hear her sing. The song itself and her vocal stylings remind me of Summer Walker a bit. However, it also reminds me of Nicki being, you know, the rap princess who can also belt some shit out. She also samples a lot of iconic songs from the 20th century on this album, but they are really utilized in a fine way at best. For example, on Pretty Girl, she samples Cyndi Lauper's Girls Just Wanna Have Fun. She later goes on to sample Get Money with Lil' Kim, and I wasn't sure, but when I was looking over the lyrics on Genius, it seemed like Lil' Kim was like a background vocalist. I'm not sure if that's true, but if it is, again, iconic. But again, it's kind of giving me like how Jack Harlow came out with his album, Come Home the Kids Miss You, with insane features and didn't really use them that well. And alongside of that, his individual tracks, his solo moments, his featureless moments were not, you know, really reminding us of why he deserves to have Drake and Justin Timberlake on his album. This was giving me that a little bit. Obviously, I do think MILLI is honestly more talented than Jack Harlow and makes better music than Jack Harlow, but it just like, it reminded me of that. This brings me to one of my main grievances alongside the whole like lazy use of the samples, would be like the album aesthetic. The fact that she used so many samples from like the later half of the 20th century and the album cover, she's very much in like almost like a late 70s, early 80s fit. And then for Conceited and No Face, the 2 singles we got, the artwork for those was more almost like late 90s, early 2000s hip-hop aesthetics. So obviously those 2 things that I just mentioned weren't necessarily cohesive, but then I was like, okay, she's honoring like the past moments in history of the hip hop genre. But it's like, she's doing that, she's going the steps, but then she kind of plummets from there. She doesn't really reach the peak of what all of that could have been. Ultimately, I think she got a little comfortable with this album in general, which many artists do on their sophomore album. It's really hard to come out with an album after you have a really, really big success on your first. It's very, very common for this kind of stuff to happen to artists. So it is not, making me less of a fan of hers. However, this idea of laziness does bring me to my ultimate grievance of this album, which is the lyrics. What makes Flo Milli so iconic is not just her attitude and her cadence, but it's what she's fucking saying. Alongside the really interesting rhyme patterns and melodies that she kind of summons from within her, it feels like. This spark is almost completely missing on this album, except for in a few moments. There's a lot of repetitive choruses, a lot of just lines that are delivered fine, but what she's saying doesn't, make me go ah, like a lot of the stuff on her mixtape did. Also, there's a lot of writers on these tracks, minimum 4, if not some have 10 writers. I don't really understand why artists always need so many eyes on something. I think you don't need a lot of writers on a track to make a good song. In fact, I think sometimes having a lot of writers can hinder the quality of tracks. Too many cooks in the kitchen, as some say. Now, I want to give you guys a little bit of proof of the decline in the quality of the lyricism on this album, and I will do that now. Who got beef? I'm trying to find something to eat. You bitches do it good. I do it better. Heard they were looking for me. Well, bitch, I'm in my bag. 2, make a hoe go night-night like it's bedtime. This is probably her most iconic lyric. Dicks up when I step in the party. 2, and this is probably my least favorite lyric on the entire album. These boys thirsty, dehydrated. He's a headache. Migraine. One of my personal favorites from the mixtape. I feel like a pussycat doll. I don't answer when he calls. 2, I stole your man. Should have put him on a leash. That's how it goes. Don't fuck with me. Now again, these are, they're lyrics. But when you say shit like dicks up when I step in the party and I feel like a pussycat doll, I don't answer when he call, and then you say something like this, it's okay, but I know you can do that. So, honestly, if this was a debut album and Ho Wise You Here was not even in the picture, this would be a pretty okay, good debut album. But because her mixtape was received so well, everyone I think as a collective is viewing this as a sophomore album. So unfortunately, ultimately, this album was kind of a flop for her because she is so incredible. She has so much talent and we've seen it. And I do think she is going to make an iconic album in the future, but this is not it. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think I'm gonna give this album a light 5. I still love you, Flo. Flo Milli shit forever. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Remember to subscribe. I will be back with another album review soon. There's been so many albums coming out. I'm super overwhelmed. I love Rico Nasty too, and her album dropped on the same day as Flo Milli's, and I was like, one at a time, ladies. Just keep slaying. Keep slaying. I will see you next time. Bye.